Everybody? Welcome back to our latest entry into our Fearless Show podcast. With me, as always, Darice Walker, aka Artist D. Walker.
Artist D. Walker here. Another episode, The Fearless Show.
Yep.
We got a super special guest, extremely talented artist, international. He's based out of Toronto, Nigerian born. Welcome, Benny Bing.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very excited to have you. I guess kind of the backstory how we kind of connected is, we got an email. I actually got an email from a couple of people about you and, said you had an upcoming, online sort of exhibition to check out and, maybe we could talk about it or do something about it. And, we checked it out. And we really liked what we saw and decided like, hey, let's get you on. Let's talk. Let's get a little more talking and, a little more one-on-one. I think we can get some good insight about everything you got going on and, have a good conversation.
Nice. Okay. I'm very happy to be here and to talk to you guys about my work, what I do, and my latest collection. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. Well, we'll pretty much just start there with the reason why we met was the exhibition, Bloom. Mm-hmm. So, just to start with the show, how I've noticed this exhibition has a little bit of a departure or a new style in terms of how you're using color and compared to like previous series with the skin tone and different ways you're painting. So just maybe talk to us a little bit about your motivation for Bloom and that body of work.
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to just put it out there. I'm a talker. So, I would try not to go on different tangents and stay focused, but just want to put that out there. So with Bloom, the whole idea was I was looking to still stay true to the storytelling and the meaning behind my work in general with the Women of Color collection. The Women of Color collection started 2016 was the first few pieces of the Women of Color collection where I used to paint celebrities, mainly Black icons. And I decided to transition over to capturing the beauty and the essence of Black women. Because if you look at contemporary art, only now in the last few years that you're really seeing a lot of Black creators on the forefront really show the beauty of who we are as a community of people, Black people. You don't really see Black female subjects in contemporary art. So there's this void. I really wanted to fill that. Sure. There's a professor that I really love, and this quote always stayed with me, Dr. Jeffries. He said, he who controls the images controls the esteem. And we see that play out time and time again in whether it's art, whether it's entertainment, television, books, movies, of stereotypes of our Blackness is being forced down our throats. Very negative stereotypes. Whether it's the way we approach the Black feminine bodies is very sexualized most of the time, and really trying to change these stereotypes and put a more positive image out there that little girls and women in our communities can really see themselves being portrayed in a very positive light. One, but also being seen too. These were very important things and what I was looking for with the collection. So with Bloom, what I wanted to do, and like you mentioned, it's a transition from my traditional style where I use certain colors to highlight the different shades and tones in the facial structure. So I used a lot of blue, a lot of purple, lavender, yellow, orange in earlier work. The last collection last year was more specific on specific colors. There were, I think, 4 colors. So I wanted to transition from that and really, address Blackness from a different perspective. And I wanted to use grayscale as that. So I really changed from using the color on the subjects, which are showing the beauty and the colorfulness of who we are, and really transition that into the backgrounds, into the clothing, into the textures, and people really responded very well to the change. So, but the same thing. I was really focusing on the black female form and black beauty and what black beauty means.
Right.
And I really, as I always say, I'm more of an instrument as an artist telling a story. So part of what I wanted to do, what I did with this collection was have a different, an audio component that you hear from the subjects themselves. What does beauty and blackness mean to you as a black woman? Because I'm a black man. I've never been a black woman. I've never walked a day in a black woman's shoes. So it's almost very hypocritical for me to try and tell a story without having the subjects themselves. You hear directly from themselves. So this was a huge part in the storytelling of the Bloom collection.
Yeah. With that audio, so were some of the models like actual poets and things? How did you get in touch with or find the models for the series?
So originally I wanted to capture black women in Toronto who are doing amazingly well in their own fields, whether it be television, whether it be arts, whether it be modeling. And I really wanted to have them see themselves portrayed in a very positive light and really capture the beauty in who they were, who they are. So the crazy thing is, none of them are poets.
Wow.
However, it started off with Sharona. She's one of the subjects in one of the paintings. She is a playwright. She's a writer. She's an actress. She does a lot of stage plays in Toronto here. She's doing very well with her company. And I really wanted to highlight her because we have this thing in Toronto where we don't really big up people in our own city. So they pop off somewhere else and they come back home like, oh yeah, yeah. But no, we got to celebrate each other and celebrate the talent within our community. So I really wanted to do that. So I told her, I said, this is a part of the storytelling of the exhibit I really want to showcase is have people hear directly from you. What does beauty and blackness mean to you? And you just keep it quite short, just 1 minute, just let people know. So they get a feel and understand of while they're looking at these portraits, hear directly from these women what that means. And she was the first one to submit, and she sent me that audio clip, and I was blown away. And I was like, wow, this is really deep. And that was the essence, is really having these women become part of the project and contribute to this project. And then the rest of them submitted, and it was just flowed in line with the whole collection. So I'm very happy about how poetic the audio component was in really telling that story too.
Yeah, I thought that was so interesting. It's so cool that happened organically. Because I noticed, I saw in maybe one of your previous openings, like in-person openings before COVID and stuff, that there was like a live poet performing at an exhibition, and
that's correct.
I like that correlation and sort of how you've been able to evolve it, but naturally, in
that's
this
right.
style of show.
Thank you. The poet you're talking about was at my opening for Colorblind exhibit last year. And she's one of my favorite poets in the city. And we're not a very huge Black creative community in the city. So we all pretty much know each other. And one of the things we've, over the past few years, we've been trying to do and a new kind of approach is really work with each other and really showcase each other's work and collaborations within the community. So I told her, I said, listen, I wanted her to write something specifically for colorblind. And it's pretty much bringing all the right people to the table, because all of this was all sponsored by the private sector for my show last year. So there's a lot of money to be made in terms of, getting the right people with the right, to the right opportunities where we can all eat at the same time. Because it's very important. Some people tend to only want to eat for themselves, but you're stronger when you work as a community, at a space, specifically as a creative community, than anything else. So that was part of it. And it's, like you said, it organically just kind of, happened again and transitioned in this with a new collection, and quite happy about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love your
Thank you.
collaboration. It's really dope.
Thank you.
Before we keep going too far into the art talk and painting, I wanted to jump back a little bit into how you got into art, because I think I remember you were in digital marketing before, and
That's right.
you sort of ventured out on your own. You quit your job, and you just started to make it happen. Can you talk about the process leading up to that, and just how that all came to be?
Sure. So I was originally in digital marketing. I worked with a small boutique firm. We had, we were working with more small to medium-sized businesses, with helping them with their digital footprint and utilizing the internet to help the business be more viable. I love what I did. I love my clients. Everything about what I did was very fulfilling to a certain extent. However, during that time, my wife, we met at work. She and her mother-in-law bought me, my mother-in-law, sorry, her mother, bought me acrylic paint for Christmas. And it was one of these things where I've never painted in my life. I mean, I've sketched and things, never picked up a brush, never painted, never had a canvas ever. So getting this gift was very much like, okay, this is nice. However, I'm just going to use it and see what happens. I'm that type of person. I'm always grateful for anything I receive. And I think it's the Africanness in me. Being born and raised in Africa, we have this part of our culture is you never say no to a gift. 1, 2, you appreciate that gift because people don't need to get you anything. Mm-hmm. So that mentality allowed me to be more grateful about what I received and use it. Because normally people just paint, just chuck it by the side, never really use it. But I used it, and I discovered that I could actually paint, and I was actually pretty good at it. So I just kept on going at it, and it was more of a hobby. It started off more as a hobby. Every after work, I would come home, and I didn't want to go out and hang out with anybody. I just want to come home and paint because I was seeing how good I was getting and how my skills and my craftsmanship was improving. So over time, I started putting on social media, and people were like, wow, you paint since when? I was like, yeah, I know. I just discovered this. Right? So, we're all in this together, right? This is new. So as much as you're surprised, I'm surprised. So people were, responding very well to it. And I started selling pieces here and there. And it was great. So, just pretty much, created a savings account just specifically for the business, and was just dumping all that money in there. I was like, whenever, let's see how this thing goes. And then a gallery from Nigeria hit me up and said one of their clients in San Francisco was interested in one of my paintings. It's a painting I did of Nigerian artist Fela Kuti. And that was huge for me because this is the first time that a gallery was actually hitting me up, and I wasn't hitting up a gallery. And they were like, oh, we have a collector interested in buying your work. I was like, wow. And so that basically started the ripple effect. But I'm a very business-minded individual. And I believe that no matter what craft or what industry you're in, you also have to understand the business side of things in order to really be successful. Mm-hmm. And with art, I just took the same approach of what I was already doing in my 9-to-5, and I took the same advice that I was getting paid to tell people how to grow their business digitally. I just did that with my business, with the art as on its own, and I grew the social media, had a website, had prints available. So I'm very much in charge of how do you grow this as a business? Because you can be creative and paint amazing things. But if you don't understand the business side of art, you could fail, right? Oh. And that's what we see sometimes with a lot of artists where they're very talented. However, because they're not business smart, they put all that they put all that responsibility into a gallery or an art dealer or gallerist or whatever, and half the time you get screwed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's very important to know the business. So I took a lot of time to learn the industry, because I'm coming to a whole new different industry. The art industry is very different from a lot of industries, right? There's similarities in them, but it's very different. You have to learn these things. So I also got a mentor.
Nice.
I didn't go to art school. Everything I learned was either through YouTube, by myself, or through my mentor. So and I just kept on going. And
your mentor?
Sorry?
Who was your mentor? If you don't
His
mind.
name is Mark Liam Smith. He's a artist from Toronto. He mainly specializes in oil paintings.
Mm-hmm.
Very talented. He's colorblind also, so his work is quite interesting. But he's one of these guys that was really open to mentor somebody, because in the industry, a lot of people don't want to share their ideas with you. They don't want to give you the connects or their plugs because they feel like you might blow and you get bigger than them. But it's quite sad. However, Mark is a very generous individual, very kind-hearted, understands the industry, and he sat me down. We talked a couple of times, and he was my mentor, and he mentored me for a good 2 years.
Mm.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I guess so. Part of that, like, business mentality, it seems like you use that a little bit for your name, because you shortened like your last name a little bit, right?
So so the name is a completely different thing. My name is not Benny Bing.
Okay.
That is my artist name.
Right.
My name is Olubenga Alaga.
Olubenga.
Yes.
Olubenga. Okay.
That's right. The thing about Benny Bing was, we get this all the time as Africans, as people have a hard time pronouncing our names in North America, and they tend to anglolize your name in some way. So they started calling me Ben. I was like, okay, let's do that. So when you're working in corporate, and you're dealing with clients, you don't want to have the discussion be your name and where you're from and your background. You want to, talk business. So I was just like, yeah, Ben is good. Let's just stick with Ben. And Ben turned to Benny, and I'm a big Sopranos fan. So a couple of boys like, Benny Bing, bada boom, became Benny Bing. And that's the origin of the name. It's a very simple, it was something that just happened. The interesting thing about it is that this happened before art. It's happened 10 years before art. So I use the name on social media so that no one could really find me, employers and things. And that works. So when I was transitioning, I really thought, it'd be important to keep my African heritage as a forefront. But I decided to stick with Benny Bing as a name because it was catchy, and as for marketing, it was amazing. So I didn't want to let go of that. So I stuck with it. But that's why I highlight the fact that, I really want people to know I am Nigerian, right? Canadian by my mother's side, but I'm very much Nigerian, born and raised in the country. So it's important for people to know that. Jamie Foxx is not Jamie Foxx. Eric
Oh, yeah,
right. So yeah, and even the story of how he got his name, is one of those things too. It's just by chance, right? So
yeah.
Well, Benny Bing is a very catchy name. Like,
yes,
definitely sounds like almost like, like Benny the Baller, like some hip hop type associated,
That's right.
So, that sounds
people
like
remember things easier that way, right?
Yeah.
If I tell you, Google, Benny Bing, Google that. People remember that when they get home versus, my name is Benga Alaga. Google it. Yeah, can you write that down? Because I would definitely forget, right? Yeah.
Definitely. It's catchy for sure.
Yeah. So that's the story on the name. But it's I have no regrets whatsoever. I think it was a great idea to go with Benny Bing. Yeah.
Interesting. I like that.
So, I have some questions. Like,
sure.
kind of like who like you said you kind of just started out painting just almost on a whim. You know, if it wasn't a gift, you might not have even been here, you know, without that gift. So, I mean, you have such a distinct style. So, I mean, were you like, you said you sketched a little bit before, were you doing art before, or were you just kind of a fan of certain art styles and art? And like, who was like, what kind of like inspired you to kind of come up with the style that you have now?
Good question. So my dad is an artist, but I would call him more of a hoarding artist. So he will create something, but not really show anybody. So I already know that there's we have the talent in the family. So as a kid, I always sketched but I sketched. I was pretty good at it. But after a while, you really don't care for, as you get older, you really don't care for these things except they're bringing you some type of money, right? So I just kind of chucked it to the side. But with the art, what happened was, because I was good at sketching, I decided to, when I started painting, I really wanted to focus on what I was good at. And what I was good at was, give me 1 second. What I was good at was portraits. So I decided to paint portraits instead than anything else, because that's what I was good at. It was sketch it and just play around with the paint. However, the style-wise, that was me. I had, the box that was given was all these bunch of colors. So I was like, I want to use every single color in this pack. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use every single color. And that was the whole idea of playing around with the different colors. And I saw artists like Francois Nelly and Voca. These are two artists that really inspired me because of the use of color. But there's a lot of times artists would copy another artist. I didn't want to do that. And I listened to a lot of artist podcasts, and they were saying everybody copies an artist. But a good artist is one who doesn't copy an artist, but takes inspiration from different artists to form their own creative style.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was just basically taking, what I was seeing, inspirations from different artists to form my own, and really let my creative mind guide me into what is my style, right? And how would that develop? And that's what it started off with, those colors. So, blue, purple, yellow, orange, and using that to paint a portrait the best that I could. And, you get better over time, So YouTube videos will show you techniques that you can use, different ways to improve. For example, the use of a projector. I spoke to one artist who said using a projector is more like cheating. Other artists was like, no. So, it's all these, getting different ideas from different people on how can you better your craftsmanship. Because no matter what, till this day, my goal is always improve your craftsmanship, because that's the only way forward.
Yeah.
You can't be stagnant. You can't be complacent.
Definitely. Yeah, you got to constantly be thinking about like new ideas and, ways to develop from the last thing you worked on. And
that's right.
Yeah, like it takes a while though. That's the thing, is you have to have studied or looked at a lot of artists to be able to pull from a lot of different places and develop an educated style and stuff like that. So
that's right. However, I try not to look at too many. I try to just focus on the ones that I really felt inspiration from, because sometimes when you get overloaded.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it also affects your what's the word? Affects you in terms of you start to doubt yourself. Am I good enough? Can I actually be a good artist? Can I produce something as good as what these people are doing? And that's the dangers of social media with the internet and Instagram is, you start to look through all these different artists out there. You start to doubt yourself. No, I'm not good enough. And then you give up. Just because you feel that, oh, wow, there's some other people that are better than me out there. They're not better than you, because everyone is creative in their own way. The question is, how can you improve your creation? and constantly improve your creation. So, I only, kept a few artists that I felt were the ones I really wanted to have inspire me, and look at their work and get inspired by, watch their videos and look at the techniques they're using. So it wasn't a lot per se.
I mean, with the bright colors and like the portraits and kind of, now you have like the floor backdrops, I definitely got some Kehinde Wale type vibes. I don't know if if you were a fan or you were inspired by some of his work, but I definitely, the way you guys both use these bright colors and the way to like really make the subject pop off the canvas, I definitely got those type of vibes from some of your work, and I'm a big fan of that. Thank
you. I mean, there's also Barclay Hendricks Barclay, inspired by his work. But that inspiration was more about the blackness and the stories and what they were capturing in their work, versus where Nelly and Voka were more about the colors and how they use those colors. But yeah, you get all these inspirations from all these different places, and you kind of come, sometimes you just have to let go and also focus on you and see where your creative mind takes you. Because a lot of times I had ideas for things I wanted to do, and creatively went a whole completely different direction.
Do you look at other Nigerian artists that are in like the contemporary art world? Because I know you're self-taught, and a lot of artists that are getting, I guess, the attention are, like they went to Yale or something like that. There's like
Indijeka, that's right.
Yeah. And even Toyin is actually Adedotola. She's Nigerian, and they're doing really well right now. So I think Nigeria's got like a really deep talent pool of artists, and I don't know, what do you think about just like that, being Nigerian and like that kind of like?
Yeah, so the funny thing is, we never really spoke per se, but Tony and I knew each other prior, about 12 years back. Is it 12? About 12, yeah. So probably about 10, 11, I'll say more. Beginning of Tumblr. She had a Tumblr page where she should show her work. And she was still in school at the time. And I was just a huge fan of her designs and her work. And I was like, the work's amazing. And I was a follower on Tumblr, and she repost the stuff, and she used to repost some of the stuff I used to write. But this is more of we didn't really know each other. This is the internet, right? So, but then years later, now I'm seeing her, I'm like, that's an amazing progression. You know what I mean? Where someone that was still in school, showing those sketches on Tumblr. Now, I mean, her work is in the Whitney. It's amazing. So yeah, absolutely. Looking at all these people, we have a lot of talent in Nigeria. I am following the scene in Nigeria. There a lot of talented people, talented artists. There's a focus, however, on hyper-realism in Nigeria. That's the big thing now. It's if you're a hyper-realist painter, like one of another artist I follow, who's actually friends with him, Arinze. He does hyper-realism paintings. And or drawings and sketches. It's really nice. But I think when Nigeria is when it's in, everybody else really doesn't matter. So if you're not doing hyperrealism right now, they don't want to hear from you, right? But it's just the mentality down there. And it's totally fine. But I'm very inspired by a lot of the new faces coming out too. There's a girl called Riwa, art by Riwa. She's also very talented. And we pretty much are about in the same space. So she also focuses on, she paints Black women. And with very colorful portraits too. Different style, but, uniquely beautiful on its own.
That's awesome. That's really cool that you just random encounters with, somebody, and then you just see like years later, like, oh wow, look at that. Like I always knew that you had it, but wow.
Exactly, right? It's but I'm really happy to see that she's getting the recognition that is due to her, because she's extremely talented. However, one thing I'm not happy about seeing is, you mentioned this, and I'm self-taught. There's a lot of there's more priority put on people who went to art school, who have an MFA or BFA, than anything else. Those people are the ones who really get into these specific circles and into specific spaces. And I think that should not be the case. I think anybody who's a talented artist should have that same access, or should be looked at the same way. I think going to art school is a great thing. Getting a master's or bachelor's in arts is good, but other people do other things with their life and find a different career, a second career later on. And to then be kind of shunned because you didn't go to art school, I think it's a little bit superficial.
Yeah. So have you found it harder, because you didn't go to art school, to like get those networking opportunities, like to create that, basically just create that network and then get plugged in certain places?
To a certain extent. However, I don't let it faze me. It's just one of those things where, you think about it, but I just don't let it faze me, because I know I have a goal for myself. And I try to stay focused on that and not be disappointed because of certain things. To me, if it doesn't work out with me and somebody, or me in a certain specific project, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a firm believer that every single thing that I'm meant for, I will be in there.
I definitely, that's that business kind of mentality, because just like business, you can't just stop once you get that one obstacle, and you just got to keep pushing on through. And I think that's probably gonna help you extremely, because like from all our talks with artists, a big thing with them is it's hard to put yourself kind of out there, because it is so personal to you. And then to get not those opportunities that you think you should get, a lot of people maybe stop or feel discouraged. But
that's
to
right.
kind of push through that is, I think, one of the most important parts about being like a creative person.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's so crazy about being an artist, is like you're pretty much faced with that your whole career. Even if you're like a big time artist, there's like, weird situations where it's just like, you hear stories about it. So, I don't know. It's just crazy, but you got to celebrate, your successes each time they happen, and
absolutely, and
try to get, and learn from them, and so you can get in a better situation the next time. So
exactly. And I don't have representation, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually wanted to talk about that, because I'm an artist. I don't have representation either. So like I have a different situation where I'm an artist who did go to grad school, who is in sort of a peer relationship with certain artists, but there's also a situation where there's a hierarchy in the particular grad schools. So it's they do that inside side anyway. So it's like not only do they prioritize like the world of academia, they prioritize particular parts of the world of academia. And there's definitely slots open for people in all aspects, self-taught and otherwise, but they have to be like almost like the face of like that moment for it. Like this self-taught artist is now going to be world renowned, and we're going to do museum shows across the world. And like it's a big deal because this will be their first show in America, their first show in Germany. That's how those artists, and it's weird that like we can't just like create the ecosystem and just keep it equally flowing around, But dang, I was about to ask something about so like representation. So when Dave Chappelle has the work of yours now, and I saw that was because it was a gift that someone reached out for you to create for him.
Yeah. So Cardinal Official, who's pretty much one of our biggest hip hop artists here in Canada, before Drake hit the scene. But Cardinal reached out to me and said, hey, he wanted to get a painting for Dave Chappelle. I was like, okay. But he and Dave Chappelle are very good friends. And I was like, okay. It's like, yo, Dave is one of these guys that really doesn't want much. So what do you get a guy that doesn't want much? You get him a painting, right? Of himself. I was like, okay, sure, absolutely. So he was doing his residency at, I believe it was New York. Anyway.
Oh, Radio City?
Radio City residency.
Oh, I went to that show. I went to one of those.
Yeah, okay. So he was doing his residency there. So he wanted to present it to him at the end of the residency, the last day for his birthday. And so, I put this whole thing together. We worked on it for about 3 weeks. He flew out to New York, gave it to him. And, he calls me right from, he was there in Radio City. He's like, yo, just took a picture with it. I'll send that to you. Dave is so happy with the painting. He's going to hang it in his man cave. And I was like, okay, cool. This is amazing. Dave Chappelle's wife was very happy, thanking me and everything. It was really amazing. It was nice. The crazy thing was Dave Chappelle is one of my favorite comedians. Now, when I say one of my favorite, I'm not just one of these guys that are one of my favorite. No, like I own all the Dave Chappelle shows, DVDs, still have them. Right. So it was, I got very emotional when he called because the reality was just hitting me that Dave Chappelle has my painting hanging in his house, will have my painting hanging in his house. And there was a feeling of accomplishment. Yeah. Right. Got it. I was so happy about it. And, so the crazy thing is every time I see Cardinal, because he invites me to parties sometimes, and he would say, oh, I was at, Dave's place and you got to see where your painting is. And he's like, Dave owns the Prince bike, the purple bike from Purple Rain. Yeah. And the bike is like right here and your painting is just right there. And I was like, okay. It's like, yeah, I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you. I'm like, cool. But Dave comes on like during quarantine, and he doesn't have social media. So he's on a friend's social media, and he went live with his photographer, and he's in there and he's just walking around showing everybody. I'm like, the painting is right there. The painting is right there. It was a great feeling. And that kind of, I think, put me in a certain level. Yeah. In Toronto, and people are like, oh wow, okay, so this guy's not playing around. Like he's really solidified. He's going for it without representation. Like I'm not begging anybody. I'm pathing my own way through. So yeah, with the lack of representation, the thing about it is, with my mentor, he has 2 representations, one in Australia and one in Montreal. And the biggest one is the one in Montreal Gallery. It took him years to get it. So he broke down the whole industry to me and how things work and what representation means. And it's like, listen, you might need representation. You might not need representation. You can do very good by yourself. The thing about it, you also don't want to be represented by a gallery that is not really interested in what you're doing or on the same page and agenda as what you're trying to achieve, or at the same time doesn't have the collectors that you're looking for or that pool. So, don't just say, the next thing you want to get is representation. You should focus on how can you be a valuable business as an artist. Because then when you're now talking with major galleries, they understand the business. They understand that you also have a good sense of how to be viable and run a profitable art business. Because at the end of the day, every artist, in my opinion, should look at themselves as a business. You're a business, right? You should not rely on having to have a gallery with representation, do your marketing, put you in those places. No, you should be able to run your business and be able to have profits coming in without having 50% taken from you by a gallery, right? And so I actually mentor other artists now, and this is the same conversations we're having. Is representation is great, and if you get it, good, but you should not be working to get that. Yeah, you should be working to sell your work, right? But yeah, I'm very happy with where I am right now in terms of I've worked with a couple of galleries, but it's always been more on a consignment basis because I'm more comfortable with that than representation. I'm not saying I'm close to the idea. I'm definitely open to the idea. However, with where I am right now, I'm open to the idea with a gallery that has what I'm looking for. Yeah. And can take me to the level where I want to go. And if you can't, then unfortunately, it makes no sense to work together.
Yeah, that's smart. That's free game for y'all artists watching right now, you know.
And one thing I would advise, I mean, this worked for me. However, you know, how we can work for other people, it will come in different ways. Look at the private sector. There's a lot of money in the private sector that they're looking, you know, whether it's to buy into the art collections. A lot of companies have art collections, or collaborate with them on some projects. So I live in a part of downtown Toronto called Regent Park, which is it was the first government housing projects in North America. And Regent Park has been known to be, you know, over time got very dangerous. This was a sketchy area and is being revitalized. So there's a lot of new developments in here. It's not really gentrification, it's more revitalization because the community is still in here and has a very much a powerful say within, you know, what happens in the community. Now, the developer in charge of this project is called Daniels Corp. And Daniels Corp is known for building some of the best properties across Canada. And I did a show here, just not because I live in Canada, I did a show with Artscape, is an organization here, which is across the street from where I live. And the CEO he came by and he saw my work and he's like, we really love this stuff. We want to showcase artists within the community in our buildings. And they have budgets for that. So he says, you know, my people will be in touch with you. We would love to buy 2 paintings for a condo that was going up. And that was the beginning of the relationship. And ever since then, there's been this amazing partnership. They own about 5 of my pieces. And all these pieces are in the lobbies, in their condominiums, in the community. So that's that was the beginning of it's a great business partnership. And last year they came on board to sponsor my event, my art show. So I went out to the private sector to look for sponsors to put together a show without a gallery.
Right.
And we had over 700 people at the show last year. It was covered by media, CTV and eTalk. They did an interview with me, and this is the biggest syndicated entertainment talk show in Canada. It's almost like Entertainment Tonight.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, you don't need a gallery per se, right? You can also leverage the private sector, right? They're always looking. The question is now, are they willing to, now this COVID has happened, but are they willing to pump out my money into the creative community to advance the arts? That is the most important thing. And there are different projects that you can work on. And at the same time, and really make money as an artist without having to wait for a gallery to be like, yes, you're good enough. I don't need someone to tell me I'm good enough.
Right.
You know, I'm not cocky, but I know I'm good enough. And all the talented artists across the board. And these people need recognition. However, if we're not invited to the table, we should be creating our own tables, right? Than begging for a seat. No. Right. So that's basically my formula is create your table, create your own opportunities the best that you can.
That's awesome. That's great advice. You've got like a great mentality, you know, just coming from, it seems like the business background, even you said you went to military school?
Well, it's military high school, but a military high school, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's a lot of discipline at a young age too, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It was tough. It was military school in Nigeria, not military school here. So
okay.
Yeah, that was not fun. Right? I would never, if I had to do it again, I'll do it again. Don't get me wrong. But it was a lot to take in as a young individual. But because of the type of person I was at the time, I was a very stubborn teenager. I felt the world revolved around me, and all these different things. And you need something to put you in line. And I think that's what it was. So, yeah.
So when did you move to Canada?
So my mom is Canadian, but Caribbean heritage. She's from Barbados. So parents met here. They moved back to Africa. They moved to Africa and had us there. We will come Christmas or summers to see my grandmother here. So we kind of already were frequent visitors, but we lived in Nigeria. Eventually came back 2000 after high school.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was a big shock because different cultures, culture clash. It's you come from an upper middle class family in Nigeria. You come here and people are saying, "Oh, how is Africa? It's what you see on TV, huts and all of these." And Jay-Z? It's like, come on, man. It's a global community, people.
Yeah.
But,
I kind of want to speak about that. Like, I always want to bring back like the Black experience, and that you have such a unique kind of background to speak to that because you Nigerian, your mother is Canadian and Barbados, and you've lived in Nigeria, you lived in Canada, and then you also like have dealings in the U.S. and like a lot of times, especially in the U.S., they like to label the Black experience as like this monolithic thing when in reality, like there's so many different variations and cultural differences within our own the Black community. Like it's just like how would you say like some of those experiences that shaped you, and like what are some of the differences have you noticed specifically since being in like Toronto and then Nigeria and whatnot?
So this is a very good question because I had this conversation with a couple of buddies of mine recently because of the anti-Black racism protests we've been seeing across the world. And it was the Black experience and the African experience are two different things.
Yeah.
And some Africans don't understand that. And I would say specifically, North American Blacks don't understand that. So let me explain what I mean. As an African, every single day you see Blackness. It's all around you.
Yeah.
Your lifestyle, the women, everything is all around you. You're very, which is why a lot of people say Nigerians or Africans are very proud people. They're very comfortable in their Blackness because of the culture and tradition. And it's pretty much instilled in you. And then when you leave Africa and you go out to the rest of the world, your horizons expands. And you now see a different experience that's completely different from your experience, right? But there's also sometimes unfortunately, superiority complex with Africans and how they look at especially Black Americans, which is not good. And then you have African Americans who have been through a lot, who are the Black experience in America is completely different, and they don't really understand what the Black experience in Africa is like because we don't understand. We understand what racism is. We haven't really lived in racism.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Apart from Kenya, I'm sorry, not even Kenya, South Africa and apartheid. The rest of Africa is really Africans fighting Africans, or Africans having issues with other Africans. So there's really it's more of a tribal thing than necessarily a racism thing. And Nigerians even Africans don't really, not just Nigerians, Africans don't understand the power of white supremacy and what white supremacy also looks like from the African perspective. Because we haven't really talked about it. A lot of us don't want to talk about it because we know it's a deep topic. But then when you come to North America, you look at Black Americans and you say, because honestly in Canada we're all immigrants. Let's put it that way, right? But you look at the specific African Americans and you look at it and instead of understanding and learning about these people, they create, I'm better than you because I'm from Africa. I'm more educated. I have a better family structure. I know my history because I can trace my roots down to my greatest granduncle who is or grandfather who's such and such. But there is the story in North America is it's a very sad story of the Black flight in America, right? So Blackness from the perspective of North America and Blackness from the perspective of, let's say, Africa, it's completely different. We look at Blackness differently but now living in North America, you have to look at it as a whole.
Yeah.
When someone's being racist towards you, don't care whether you're African American with roots, history of slavery in America, where your families were slaves, or whether or not you were some African that came in the 70s, and you're second generation. No one cares about that. You're Black, and that's what they look at, right? That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So the overall, that there is a complete Black experience that some Africans have not had yet. I understand that experience.
Yeah.
So when we're talking, when the whole anti-Black thing, watching the protests on TV, some Nigerians were like, okay, that's their problem. But is it?
Mm.
It is it's our problem, because the same things are happening is happening in Nigeria and happening in Africa on a different scale. Even worse than what is happening in North America. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you're looking at some of the countries in Nigeria in Africa very dysfunctional. You're looking at America North America, Canada, the US kind of have some establishments to how the way of life is. Still dysfunctional in its own way.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. But you should be empathetic towards situations and towards things than take it's not my problem. It's a very privileged mentality.
Mm-hmm. Do you think like this whole movement has kind of opened eyes?
Educated.
Yeah.
Educated, yes. Because when I came, the first thing I did, my mom told me, understand what life is for a Black person in North America. That's the first thing to understand. If you don't understand that, you're going to be screwed no matter where you go, because you're always going to have this mentality that, oh yeah, if you would not see the biases that are there, that are affecting you, because you feel that, no, I'm not one of them. Mm-hmm. Right? So we're getting better at educating ourselves. We're getting better at calling out other Africans and saying, listen, educate yourself. Understand the history of this country. Understand how everything, honestly, a lot of the issues is all stems from slavery. Everything's from chattel slavery.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything started from that auction block. And if you can educate yourself, I mean, I'm a very curious person. I read a lot, I research a lot. I go out and look for this information. People don't. And it's important to educate yourself. A lot of times we say, oh, how do we educate our allies and the white people? But how do we educate other Black people who are ignorant about the situation that they're in?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So it's one of those topics. I mean, we can talk for hours about, the white supremacy in Africa that Africans choose not to look at. It's pretty much called colonialism, but they choose not to talk about it. Yeah. It's fine. But that's a whole topic on its own, right? And that colonialism has transformed what we do with our lives, and why Africa is so dysfunctional is all based on the results of that. Pretty much why we're not as creative as we used to be. African art, huge, stolen. Museums in Europe, they don't want to release them, right? And they're silently auctioning them off, right? In the 70s, we have a thing called in Nigeria called Expo 77. It was one of the biggest art expositions in Africa at that time. And a lot of people from different countries came. There's so much creativeness happening in the community. And all of a sudden, it just stopped. And everything is now focused on, oh, you need to be in this specific position, careers or occupations in order to make a life for yourself. You need to be a doctor. You need to be a lawyer. You need to be in finance. You need to do the very comfortable, secure jobs and occupations versus time. So we and a lot of people are now frustrated, realizing now I'm happy being an artist. I'm actually an artist. Why should I take that path? There were people before me that were creating amazing, beautiful bodies of work in Africa back in the 70s and the 60s.
Yeah.
So how is it that we've now kind of let that go, right? That's part of colonialism, right?
Yeah.
That's part of the structure. And people will not admit it, but it is the truth. That is white supremacy. It destroyed our creativeness as people. And the day we start to understand that and embrace our Africanness, embrace our art, because we're telling our stories of our experiences, recording our history. If not, if we don't start to do that again, then we're doomed.
Hmm.
Right?
So Yeah, in recent years, I've definitely seen, especially like in music, like African music kind of making its way more into the world, into like pop culture, into like African dance and like all these, like I definitely have seen it start to come more into the mainstream and get more recognized for, it's kind of, creativity and the talent that is actually out there. And
That's right.
and I think that's been like a really good thing, because it's been kind of, especially like, African Americans kind of reconnecting with that side of, our history. Like because we never were exposed to that. We only had to create what we had from here. So we never
From here, that's right.
And I definitely have seen that kind of growing more and more within the culture here in the US. And I feel like it's always been kind of a one-way street, like our music going out, our like African American culture going out, instead of really seeing our actual history and our actual like culture coming this way. And I feel like it's starting to kind of break through a little bit more and
That's
influence
right.
people.
Yeah. And what the way I see it is, Americana is an export. Americana is the biggest export of America.
For sure.
Right? And when you look at Americana, Black is pretty much 80% of Americana. I don't care what anybody has to say. They can never tell me otherwise. It is, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not, whether even if it is spearheaded by someone white, it was created by someone Black, or stolen or inspired by someone Black, right?
Elvis Presley.
Right, exactly, right? So I don't care what anybody tells me. Americana is very much Black, and we grew up in that, right? As Africans also, we grew up in that. We are also inspired by that. But now what we're seeing with the music industry is what is a perfectly good example. So I was actually 10 years ago, 2010, myself and a partner of mine, we created a Black Spotify, African Spotify. It was called Giddy Lounge, which was showcasing local African music talents. It never lifted off the floor, unfortunately. We never got funding, so we had to abandon the project. But during that time, all these big names you see now, we interviewed all of them. We were on the radio. We had all the music playing. And what we're trying to do is just bring African, specifically Nigerian music to the forefront. And eventually when we abandoned the project, other people, it still kept on going. And we see where it is now, where we've never heard African, specifically African music, Ghanaian, Kenyan, South African, Nigerian, being played this much on a global scale.
Never.
And that's because we decided that we're going to show the world our talent and how good we are. Same thing should start applying to different aspects. For example, the arts, specifically creatives, artists, painters, sculptors. And I think the world is slowly, we were seeing that last year, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
We saw the rise of the Black artist globally.
Yeah.
Right? I just hope that it continues. Because that's what we need.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of talks recently about, with other artists and everything, about kind of like what's next, like what's the next step. We've protested, we've been out in force, we've really expressed ourselves, we've demanded change, we've actually forced change in a lot of situations, and it's like, okay, now what's the next wave? Like, what's the next concerted wave to make sure that this is like a permanent, lasting thing? And me and Doris, we've talked a bunch, and me personally, I think, especially when it comes to like art and stuff, it's kind of changing the narrative, like having control of the narrative. And like what you do is like, and what Doris has done recently with his own exhibition called Black Lives Matter, which is also live online. It's kind of changing the representation of like the Black male or the Black female, and like having it in a more positive light and realistic light, and not just as, in victimhood, or like, always in like the worst kind of tragic, like documentation of some of the worst things that have happened, but instead of just actual real life, representation of what it means to be Black, basically.
Yeah, it's missing.
Sorry.
No, keep going.
No, I wasn't going to say anything. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, just the naturalism, like just what, just like us having a conversation right now, like that type of thing it hasn't been normalized, all the way just yet,
Yes.
So it's like, those are the types of like motivations for like, you know, the type of work, you know, and just, I don't know. It's like you said, I just want, you know, artists hopefully to keep, you know, pushing, because we all are. I see so many different things happening. You know, there's like a lot of like BSU, like Black Student Union groups coming together, doing panel discussions about what it's like to be Black at those schools. So like they're like, you know, challenging the institutions and stuff.
That's
about,
right.
you know, our representation. So I think there's going to be a lot of, you know, things going in positivity in the future, pushed by a lot of artists, you know, creatives are.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. So, you know, there was, you know, we were also talking about it here in Toronto about what diversity and inclusion and equity really looks like. And galleries were called out, right? Not just art institutions, but galleries. So the top 16 galleries in Toronto were called out, and you know, there was a guy that put together a spreadsheet of some data of who they represent. So out of the top 16 galleries in Toronto, they represent 465 artists. Of that 465 artists, only 10 of them are Black. 10. Aboriginal, so Native, 1. And in Canada, Native art is huge. Aboriginal art is huge. Indigenous art is a big thing. 1. Out of, and then it was like other people of color made up about 33 or something like that. And then women made up about 144. But it's, so you can clearly see it's a white male dominated industry. Now, of course, we know this is, for them, for a lot of these galleries, it's just a business, right? But then we started breaking it down and was looking at, so out of these 10 Black artists that are represented, who exactly are they? Because they're not part of our crew. You know,
right,
we
like, yeah,
know each other.
Where'd you find them at? Yeah.
Yeah, who are these guys, right? And you know, you get to find out they're not even Canadians. They're not Canadian artists. They're international artists or American artists that are represented in Toronto. And, you know, the gallery just listed it as, you know, the token Black artists that they have.
Right,
now,
10 Black artists that get shown pretty much in every, you know, exhibition.
Well,
out
Kehinde
there,
Wiley's probably one of those 10. I guarantee you Kehinde's one of those 10. Like,
right? So it's like, but what does that mean for the creative community of your city? You know what? People are going to school. People are in, whether it's we have a school here, you know, OCAD. It's an art school. We're the biggest in the country. Or people are in university, you know, studying. And so these people coming out, but you know, where are they? You know, there's no representation. Where are they being showcased? Right? What does that mean for the ecosystem, our own ecosystem, where there's a lack of representation? So a bunch of all these guys, you know, they some of them responded, some of them didn't respond. And the thing about it was, and I asked this question on Instagram a couple of days ago, is, you know, everyone released an anti-Black racism statement. Others put Black squares. You know, but is it performative or is it genuine? Right? And I really wanted to get a temperature of what people feel. And you know, out of all the responses, it was like 95% was like, yeah, it's all performative. You know, because at the end of the day, it's a business for these people. They don't care. They like the status quo and they want to stick it the way it is. But at the end of the day, we're going to keep on rattling cages and shaking the cages and shaking the ground, because things have to change. But what I like is what we're seeing in the city here is a little bit different, where the private sector is coming in to fund Black art communities and Black art organizations because they see the need for it. The city of Toronto just actually made a huge couple of multi-million-dollar investment into a Black arts organization. So these changes are for us. So what are important too, right? Where if these galleries are not going to budget, they want to stay where they are, then how can we get money and funding from the private sector or from the public sector, for example, the state or the province, for state for you guys, and the city, into these projects that can help Black artists showcase their work. So me, I'm very happy about seeing these changes happen, because at the end of the day, it comes down to money. It's all about funding, right? And if you get some, if that funding comes in, then these are good steps that we're seeing being made. But I wouldn't hold my breath for the galleries. I wouldn't.
Do you think galleries are dying?
Absolutely. That's why I'm not holding my breath. Yeah, it's a dying model, and they know it. But so they're still trying to hold on tight to it because they know it's dying. So let me give you a perfect example. Do you remember back in the early 2000s with Napster and the music industry?
Oh yeah.
We're exactly there right now in the art industry. Because they don't know what to do. It's like at that point, all these major labels had no idea what they were going to do. They thought that the music business was dead.
Yeah.
They felt it was completely dead. The only person that saved them, and a lot of them would admit it, and people wouldn't really talk about it, is Steve Jobs. iTunes saved the music industry.
Completely.
Right? And then that changed the formula. And now they're making tons of money. Money they can't even imagine they're making because of that, because of streaming now. But, if not for iTunes, streaming will never have happened.
Right. Well,
right?
And what's crazy about that is the deals the labels made with iTunes that makes it so they can't compete. So iTunes can never be a label.
That's right.
Or they can pull all their contract licenses.
That's right.
So like iTunes and Spotify can never actually sign an artist.
That's
all
right.
of their music will be pulled.
Yeah. So, so the same thing is happening right now in from what I'm seeing in the art space is the brick and mortar galleries are no longer working. It's a failing system, but they're really trying to hold on to it. And now it's going more towards, because the galleries are being removed, you're looking at artists that are now basically that's the middleman. So they're cutting out the middleman and going directly to the source. They're going to these art fairs. They're directly building their own collector list and forging partnerships and relationships with better art dealers. That's people. It's been said that you really only need one art critic, 2 or 3 major art collectors, and you're good. Right? Because everyone knows that the system is slowly falling apart. And that's what we're here to basically either create a whole new system or be at the forefront of what that whatever the new system is going to be at the forefront of it, where everybody eats, right? And we're seeing that slowly because there's the Ghanaian artist, Amarako, I can't remember his name. There's Amarako. Anyway, he has 2 major art collectors that really love his work, and he's signed to Marian Ibrahim Gallery in Chicago.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
they're big. So, they're growing fast. That gallery
growing very fast.
Yeah, actually, that's one of I would say the top, because that's like a Black art gallery, and
that is right.
They're at the forefront.
Yeah.
They're like one of the leaders in terms of just even the art industry, but also like Black art galleries. So.
Yeah. So if you ask me representation, I would love to work with that gallery. Right. I would love to work with a Black gallery that understands the message in my work. Because if a gallery that is not fully behind you, this makes no sense, right? If they can't, do everything and basically ride or die. That's what you're looking for, in a gallery, is a ride or die partner. And if they're not that, then you're really just wasting your time because you're always going to be on the back burner. Right? You're going to be that token Black artist that is represented, but they don't do anything for you.
Yeah, you're going to work hard for me. I want you to sweat for me. If I'm going to break this down with you, you got to work for it.
Exactly. So, change is coming. You know, we can see the tide, you know, the change, and we're seeing things happen. Let's just see how those things play out. But at the same time, keep holding people accountable. And my thing is to be in positions of power where decisions that are being made, I'm at that table. So I sit on the board at Artscape, and as a board member, it's an eye-opening to see the decisions that are being made, and being able to be at that table to sit, to make sure that everyone is seen, right? And everyone is heard. And the decisions that you're making impact the community in a very positive way, right? We provide, the organization provides subsidized housing for artists across the city in Toronto. They also provide venue spaces, and we have a music incubator in partnership with The Weeknd. It's called House. There's also a digital media lab that we just opened up, a multi-million-dollar project, which has a woodworking space, digital fabrication, digital media, there's fashion. So it's a whole a co-working space. It's an amazing project. So, and sitting on the board and seeing what has been, you know, what is happening behind the scenes in the industry, and decisions being made at the table, is very important to be at that table, to have your input and call out things when you see them, things that happen, happening, and really have a say is important. And that's where you make the most change, is from these boardrooms, right? When you're in these boardrooms, when you have a say, that goes a long way. And when people notice, they know that they're represented in the board, where it's not just some person that has no idea what's going on, and it's just a token Black guy on the board. No. And our board is very diverse. So that's a good thing. And we're looking to do that across the board.
Nice.
So with this online exhibition, you know, COVID kind of changed how art is being shown and being displayed. Was this in response to, you know, what was going on in the world, or was this something you had already had planned on doing?
So I already had plans for this. Very similar to what we did last year with the funding from the private sector. This companies were interested in working with me this year based on the success of last year. So I got a couple of two big sponsors on board. The moment I actually signed the agreement with the last sponsor, 2 days later, Canada went into lockdown. And we have a big Caribbean festival up here. I'm sure you've heard about it, Caribana, in Toronto. So my show was supposed to be 2 weeks after Caribana. So mid-August, next month. But once Caribana was canceled, we realized that nothing's going to happen in the city in August. There's no way anything's going to be happening where we can have, you know, over 700 people come to a space.
Yeah.
So we kind of just, you know, canceled the plans, and I felt defeated by it. But at the same time, we all realized there's a pandemic going on. Everything's shut down.
Well,
so I just kept.
I think you guys realized it a little more than we do.
Yes, we did. So I decided, you know, my wife was telling me while I was creating, she's like, you just showcase this work at some point, right? Just put it online, put it out there, let the world know what you're working on while, you know, we're in quarantine. So I came up with this idea of, I'll do a virtual exhibit. But all the different things, the mistakes we made last year with the in-person exhibit, things like the availability of prints of the work, being able to purchase those with ease, and the e-commerce aspect, all these different things, reaching out to multiple news outlets. So it's back before last year, we did all of this with funding. So there was money that was already provided. However, now with COVID, you know, I don't want to spend my personal bank when the world is on fire. Yeah. No. So we have to be very frugal with the way we did this. And everything was DIY, right? My wife is very knowledgeable on a couple of media outlets out there. So we reached out, sent up press releases like the one that was sent to you guys. And then I have a good mailing list. So reach out to the mailing list to let them know I'm going to be releasing the new collection I'm working on. Due to COVID, is all going to be a virtual exhibit. People were excited. People were waiting. So the moment we launched and we put it out there, my whole idea was to create a one seamless page where you can just view the whole thing without leaving. And being able to provide you with, if you're interested in the print, these are available in print. So we made, print, I think almost all the paintings. There's only one painting that there's no print available for. We made them all available in print form. So anybody that wanted to can purchase the original, you have the ability to purchase the print. I also decided to create smaller prints at $100 price point because, you have to be sensitive to the economic structure, right? It's climate right now where people lost their jobs, people are unemployed or whatever the case may be, but they want to support. However, they don't want to, and $200 for them might be a lot, but they'd rather, they can spend $100. So, providing options and choices for people who want to collect. And a lot of these collectors are young Black collectors, right? They don't come from rich families that have an understanding of art, but they want to support and in any way, shape, or form. So being able to put all these things together and then put it out there, I didn't have any expectations, zero. I was like, I'm just gonna put it out. Whatever happens, happens, and it really took off on its own, organically. So I'm very happy. I feel blessed and privileged because I know what is happening across our industry right now. A lot of people are being hit bad. Yeah. So to being able to have a very successful virtual exhibit is something that I'm grateful for.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, yes, considering the times and then like being able to still, make sales and to make that shift and recognize that, they're like less fortunate collectors that would still like to support, and then, having that availability. Those are things that other artists should also consider, they, consider at certain aspects, making options available.
Yeah.
But there were a bunch of questions. I was trying to think of something we hadn't really touched on yet. But I think I had seen in a recent interview you did that you spoke a little bit about how you deal with anxiety as an artist. And I think a lot of artists like have anxiety in some form or fashion and how they deal with that. And like, is it more like the process of making, or, could you dive into that a little bit?
Sure. This is prior to art. I've had anxiety on and off. I don't know what triggers it. It's not really stress per se, for me specifically. Sometimes it might be, but most times it's not really stress. It happened when I'm actually less stressed out. And then what I started realizing was it was happening a lot when I was painting. And a lot had to do with whether or not I could accomplish what I had in mind. Some of it felt as like overexcitement about the project I was about to work on, and that overexcitement actually turned to anxiety, and it became very bad. So I started self-medicate with CBD, and then I also used THC to help with the anxiety. But CBD helped improve it, and I still use it till today. And it helps because, anxiety is very crippling, and it can really set you back. And it happened a couple of times on paintings I was working on, and I just couldn't perform. I couldn't paint. I couldn't do anything. I just looked at the canvas. I was just looking at it. And I was able to accomplish anything. I was able to paint. I was just done. So it meant a lot finding a solution. And lucky for us in Canada, we kind of, nationwide, weed is legal. So that allowed the companies to also provide CBD on its own to use for these type of illnesses or issues. So no, being able to use that has helped improve how I deal with it and recover from it.
Oh, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
like that. That's like, because that's sort of like a just a testimony to just like just a simple use, almost like Tylenol. It's like
That's
it's
right.
it's something I need to get over this like headache or this this spell, and I'll be focused and get what I need to do done. I'm working, I'm like being this isn't like a social, thing. So it's like, yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, but I don't create high.
Right.
I know people that do, and everyone has their own formula or what works for them. Unfortunately, I can't. So I don't create. I will smoke after or on my off day, but while I'm actually painting, I have to be the most sober that I am.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, eyes open, lots of coffee, but yeah, no substances, no alcohol, none of that. And I paint this collection. I was painting while listening to a lot of lectures. So one was from Yale. Then the other one was actually not really a lecture. Was a talk from Harvard about the influence of slavery on the institutions. And then a lot of the other podcasts I listened to was motivational and inspirational Zen Buddhist talks by Alan Watts. I don't know if you ever heard of Alan Watts. Alan Watts was a philosopher, Zen Buddhist too, and he had these recordings, and they're all available on YouTube, and they're hours long, sometimes 2-3 hours long. So it's perfect. You just play it, and you're listening while you're painting, and it always put me into flow. My main goal is always to get into flow. So flow is that state when everything, time really, you don't really feel time, stand still. You're extremely focused on a specific task. You're pretty much 100% productive. And as artists, I'm sure, Doris, you know this, that feeling of being in flow. A lot of artists get it, musicians get it, athletes get it. So my main goal is you can't get into flow if you're intoxicated, whether you're drinking or if you're high. So it's important to clear your mind and free the mind and let your mind itself do its thing. And I love flow. I've been researching flow for the past 4 or 5 years now, and we learn things every single day. We find out the chemicals now that are all in the brain at the same time when you're in flow. And all those chemicals, I think I can only name like 3. The rest I've forgotten, like serotonin, serotonin, dopamine, androgenine, and endorphins. And there's one more, but they're all in your brain at the same time. All these chemicals are all at the same time. And if you want to duplicate that in a pill form, a pharmaceutical form, you have to take some serious drugs: cocaine, weed, ecstasy, MDMA, all at the same time, which of course you can die. So the concept of what happens in your brain while you're in flow is very interesting, and there's a lot of research that's happening right now in that space. This is something you would love to look into and research, but flow is key. For me, flow is key. Once I get into flow, the things that I do, it's quite amazing. I'm completely 100% focused.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to, that's what you always strive for. Every time I sit down in front of something, it's like you just hope it happens in a few minutes instead of like in like a 30 minutes or an hour sometimes.
That's right. That's right. It takes about 20, 30 minutes of you doing the same thing focused for it to actually kick in.
Yeah.
And this is all natural. This is completely your own body, your own build, your own system that is, placing you in that space to be the most productive that you are. And now what they're seeing from these studies is that after you come out from flow, I think within the first 2-3 hours, your brain is more eager to learn new things and starts to learn new patterns, which is why a lot of people that go in flow, they improve their discipline or their craft faster over time.
Mm-hmm.
So, because that was something that I was kind of interested in, like what exactly, apart from the focus, the 100% focus and of flow, what else happens? We learn better, we learn faster when we actually come out from flow. There's a lot of things about the brain that we don't know about. We're learning, as a society every single day, and this is one of them, and this affects us as creatives. So it's very interesting to find that out.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's pretty awesome. I'm definitely gonna look more into flow because those concepts are really intriguing. Before we wrap up anything, I wanted to ask you, what are your goals after quarantine? Do you have any plans after this exhibition, where you got your new series started? What types of things are in the future for Benny Bing?
So I'm gonna continue working on the Blooms series, but not really. The Bloom series is what it is, but continuing with that same style, and same narrative. Moving forward, I'm gonna just see where it takes me and just create. I also next year I'm definitely gonna be doing a show in Chicago. We're still ironing everything out right now. This year in November, there's a art fair. One of the biggest art fairs in West Africa is Art X Lagos, which I've been trying to participate and really go back home and show my work at home because I haven't done that yet. My work sells in Nigeria through some galleries and some partnerships I have, but I've never done an event there. So I wanted to do that this year. However, looking at COVID, that's not going to happen. So we're going to plan something for 2021 November to be part of that. And I'm right now working with Daniels, the builder I talked about earlier in Regent Park. We're working on a couple of projects together. So there's a lot of things in the works right now, but we're just going to see how things go. And then once the city is able, because we're now moving into the different stages of reopening. So right now we're in stage 3. So there will be the ability for galleries to open up, but with X amount of people in the spaces. And so some galleries are trying to work out how that would work. So there's galleries right now that are waiting for it to open up to work. Have the work showcased. So once that opens, we're going back. We're hitting the road running. Right?
Yeah, man. A friend of mine had an opening a couple of days ago, an in-person. Nice. Yeah, here in New York, we're in phase 3. So there was a social distance, RSVP for a time slot type situation.
That's right.
But it was really interesting. It was cool. It was actually nice because it wasn't crowded.
That's right. It wasn't crowded.
I was like, all right. I kind of like that. We should just keep it like this.
Keep this going.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So that's pretty much it. Right now, I'm just keeping those things. I don't want to load myself with too much. I also want to take some time to just be free and just relax, because for the first 5 months of the year, I was consumed with Bloom. I was in my own bubble. I really didn't leave the house. I really didn't speak to people. I was really in creation mode. So now it's kind of like, little vacation, just
to enjoy it, man. It's out there. It's
recap and and get back and start doing things. But a couple of those events, definitely probably in September, October. I know that galleries will start opening up in Toronto. I want to do an in-person showing of what pieces are left from Bloom or even prints. People will love to come out and see that. So that I would say is the next thing I'm working towards right now. Apart from the side projects, we're doing a couple of murals here and there inside in buildings, couple of partnerships with brands that will be coming out in the future. We'll see how those ones work out. So there are a couple of things in the works. We're just taking it step by step, day by day.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see what you develop, those brand partnerships, everything, it sounds like a bright future, and, all the collaborations I'm really looking forward to. Do you got any more questions that you have, Dario, or?
No, I think we had a lot.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of things,
Yeah. Oh, wow. Time flies, huh?
Yeah. I didn't want you to have to do the whole 2 hours,
Oh, no, totally fine. Totally fine. And there's been so much going on my end here with, friends. We lost some people, unfortunately. So yeah, I just couldn't write things out. Right now, I'd rather talk than write. So this really means a lot. And because sometimes when you write too, you might not be able to really convey everything you try and say.
Yeah.
It comes up differently because it's written, right? So yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, my condolences, and
sure.
Thank you.
That's this is better than the text. I think getting your personality to come through is hard on a piece of paper or the screen.
That is correct.
So it's been really good just to see you, meet you.
Likewise.
See your work, and hopefully we can, do something similar like this or collaborate again in the future.
Absolutely. And I have family in New York, so whenever I'm in town up there, once this whole thing has died down, and, we can connect in person and chat more. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. And for everybody who's listening, you should definitely go to BennyBing.com. Here is Bloom is live right now. How long will it be, going for? Do you know?
August 11th. So it's running for 2 months. Yeah. So August 11th is the end of the virtual exhibit.
Okay. So about 2.5 weeks. You guys still have time to go to BennyBing.com, check it out. Check out his socials. We will have all that in the description of where this goes up. Man, thanks for joining us. It was really, really great to connect and kind of talk to the man behind the canvas and, kind of get a good feel for everything you're doing. And we really like what we see and just excited to see what else you have in the future. We'll definitely always be around to help you out in any way we can. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. It was really fun talking with you guys. And like I said, we talked about so many things that we can keep on talking for hours. Yeah. But this is really nice. I really appreciate it. This means a lot. You guys showcasing, people like myself, Black creatives is very important. That we stick together as a Black creative community, and we celebrate each other. I think that's the key thing. Yeah. Because we're stronger as a community than trying to do these things on our own. Without a doubt.
No, yeah, that's a fact. So, I hope you stay safe. You
too.
Definitely.
We'll talk again, soon. But until then, good luck with everything. And this has been another episode of The Fearless Show. We've had an amazing guest, Benny Bing. Thank you once again. And to everyone else out there, you got to keep living life fearless.
Yes, sir.
Nice. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Peace.